Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to be looking at another question from the MAT, which is the maths admission test that you must sit if you're applying for maths or computer science at Oxford. And the question essentially asks us to find out which integral has the largest value without calculating any of them directly. So the approach that we're going to take to solve this question is that we're going to consider each integral in turn and figure out some upper or lower bound for each one. Okay, so if we consider option A first, and we consider the function that's being integrated, which is x squared minus 4 times sine to the 8 of pi x. So with x ranging from 0 to 2, we have that x squared minus 4 is going to be less than or equal to 0. And we're going to have that sine pi x to the 8 is going to be larger than or equal to 0. So therefore, x squared minus 4 multiplied by sine to the 8 of pi x is going to be less than or equal to 0 in the range from 0 to 2. And while this implies that the integral from 2 to 0 is also going to be less than or equal to 0, because if the function is always less than or equal to 0 in the range, then the area enclosed by it is also going to be less than or equal to 0. And then if we consider option B, well, in the range from 0 to 2 pi, cos x is going to be less than or equal to 1. So therefore, the maximum value that 2 plus cos x cubed can take is when cos x is 1, so 2 plus 1 cubed, which is 27. So this means the integral of the function from 2 pi to 0, well, if the maximum that it takes is 27, it has to be less than or equal to 27 times the range that we're integrating through, which is 2 pi. So it has to be less than or equal to 54 pi. And option C, well, the maximum value that sine x can take is 1. And therefore the maximum value that sine to the 100x can take is also 1. So this means that if we're integrating from pi to 0, well, the maximum value that this can take is again going to be the maximum value times the range that we're integrating through, which is pi. So this integral has to be less than or equal to pi. So now let's consider option D. Well, this is 3 minus sine x to the 6. And the minimum value that this takes is when sine x is 1. And that's because as sine x gets smaller than 1, the expression inside the bracket actually gets larger. So therefore this is always going to be larger than or equal to 3 minus 1 to the 6, or 2 to the 6, which is just 64. So that means if we integrate the function from pi to 0, well, we can establish a lower bound of 64 times by the range that we're integrating through, which is pi. So it has to be larger than or equal to 64 pi. And finally, let's consider option E. So since sine x is always less than or equal to 1, we have that sine cubed x is also always less than or equal to 1. So that means sine cubed x minus 1 is always less than or equal to 0. And the same applies if we multiply the function by 108. So if we integrate the function from 8 pi to 0, since the function is always less than or equal to 0, the area that it captures is also going to be less than or equal to 0, hence the integral is going to be less than or equal to 0. So from this we can see that options A and E are both less than 0. Option C is always less than or equal to pi, and option B is always less than or equal to 54 pi. So even if all the options A, B, C, and E took their maximum values, since D is always larger than or equal to 64 pi, this is going to be our final answer. So how did you find this question? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe and share it to a friend to see if they can solve it too.